In this video, I'm going to show you how to overcome relationship anxiety, or at least the first step in the process, by proving to you that no matter what flavor your anxiety shows up with, the core is always the same. But before we go there, how do each of these situations make you feel? You send your partner a text message and the delay seems to last forever. Number 2, you're at dinner with your partner and they're really not saying much. Or number 3, your partner asks you to have a very serious conversation about feelings.
Can we talk about something important?
Oh, what? Feelings?
If any of those totally flip your stomach, you might have one of the 5 relationship anxiety archetypes that I work with in my private practice and talk about online. So by the end of this video, you'll know exactly which of them you might be stuck in, what the universal trigger for all of these anxiety archetypes is, and I'll also teach you the first small move you need to make to break free from this cycle. If we've not met before, my name is Oliver. I'm a psychotherapist here in Los Angeles, and I've spent nearly a decade helping couples, families, and adults with anxiety. And I've developed a bit of an obsession with how anxiety and uncertainty are linked and how they conspire together to hijack your romance. So when it comes to anxiety and relationship anxiety, there's 5 patterns that I see. And we know this because we describe very different anxious behaviors with the same word, anxiety. So the thinker has a behavior that's very much connected with worrying or overthinking. The detective has behaviors that stem from an assumption that something's wrong or bad, and they will check or collect evidence. The seeker has behaviors all to do with alleviating anxiety by checking, planning, controlling, asking for assurance. The fortress has behaviors that look like shutting down or retreating when they're anxious. And the defender has behaviors all linked to self-blame and critical attacks on their self. To find out, each one of these archetypes has a slightly different behavior associated with anxiety, and they all have very different impacts on your relationship. The thinker's worry will create distance because their partner can't assure them enough. The detective's partner will feel scrutinized or put on trial. The seeker's partner is going to feel drained from constantly being organized or controlled or having to give assurance. They may even feel controlled at times. The fortress's partner will no doubt feel lonely in a relationship with a partner who shuts down whenever feelings come up. And the defender's partner finds themselves in a relationship with someone who doesn't think they're worthy or lovable or good enough to be in it. But no matter what type of anxiety behavior exhibited, they all run on the same engine. And that comes from an internal reaction to a trigger. And that trigger usually always has an element of uncertainty in it. This is the thing that you need to know right off the bat. Your relationship anxiety isn't necessarily about your partner at all. It's about an older system in your body that treats not knowing or uncertainty like danger. So your anxiety is actually more to do with your relationship with uncertainty than it is with the relationship you have with your significant other. So picture us as hunter-gatherers walking through tall grass and they heard a rustle, something moving in the shrubbery. Was it wind or was it a predator? Now, the ancestors that we had who assumed that the noise was danger and bolted out of there survived, and they passed those traits on to their kids because they were alive to have kids. So essentially, we come from a very long line of anxious people who evolved to react to uncertainty as if it was a threat. Because back then, getting it wrong was life or death. But fast forward to today, and the uncertainty that comes from a really long delay in your partner writing back is also seen as a threat. And because we've got this primitive wiring, we've got to do something about it. So today, anxiety is not scanning for hungry predators. The only thing that you can really scan for is emotional risks. And if you're in a relationship, there's a lot of risk because you love this person and you don't want to lose them. Anxiety then is scanning to see if they're pulling away, if you think they're still important to them. It's the same kind of circuitry. It's just focused on relationships and the person that you love. The bad news here is that relationships are just full of uncertainty, right? When you're first dating, you don't know whether they're going to call you. You don't know whether they like you. You don't know if you're going to get a second date. If you're in a long-term relationship, there's still uncertainty. They could leave you, they could get sick of you, they could move out. And if you're married, well, there's plenty of divorces these days. Uncertainty can't be removed from relationships, but your anxiety still rings the alarm bell and mislabels behaviors in your partner that cause you to feel uncertain. It treats uncertainty as a threat, pushes you to fix, press it down, explain it, shut it off, do something about it. And those moves might work the first time around, maybe even the second, but over the long term, things get worse. So these are the relationship anxiety archetypes. And I'm going to show you how the same engine underneath looks different on the surface depending on your archetype. But as you listen, ask yourself, is this me or is this my partner? I think most people are more likely to spot their partners faster than they spot themselves. But here we go. The detective. The detective's behavioral response is going to be surveillance, checking their partner's phone, worrying if something is wrong, analyzing micro expressions, maybe even interrogating their partner about who they're texting, searching for evidence of something. And this comes from an internal response where ambiguous signals get interpreted as threats. Their brain literally cannot differentiate between, I don't know who texted them, and they're cheating. So it constructs worst-case narratives to fill in the blanks. Over time, this turns the relationship into this very exhausting dynamic where the partner feels like a permanent suspect under investigation. They might actually become more secretive, not because they're guilty, but because they're being watched so much. And that ironically confirms the detective's suspicions. So at its core, uncertainty. It's the inability to tolerate the uncertainty of not knowing what's happening in their partner's private world. The detective needs 100% transparency to feel safe, but relationships require some trust, and you never really know what's going on in another person's mind anyway. The seeker's behavioral response is reassurance-seeking or controlling the uncertainty, often through constant texts or calls or demands for I love you, to know where they are. Sometimes they can't function until they get a response. They're checking their phone obsessively, sending multiple follow-up checks if their partner doesn't reply. Internally, their nervous system treats silence as abandonment or not knowing as a genuine survival threat, and it creates panic that can only be soothed by contact. But that's not entirely true, because the soothing that you get from someone else only has a half-life of a few minutes, and then you're back to normal. Over time, the partner just becomes exhausted from being used as a human anxiety medication. They need to constantly give more and more proof that the relationship is okay or show where they are. It leads to resentment and withdrawal because there's no amount of reassurance one person can ever give another because it's coming from inside. So this pattern is all about intolerance of uncertainty and not knowing if their partner is okay, if they're loved, or if the relationship is okay. The thinker's behavioral response is rumination, worry. Sometimes that shows up as insomnia or not being able to concentrate, endless analysis of what-ifs. They're going to be thinking about why their partner was quiet at dinner and coming up with very elaborate mental stories from very minimal data. Their internal response is trying to think their way to certainty by running endless what-if scenarios, as if you could solve the equation of their relationship through thinking it through. But without new information, you're just generating more problems and not generating any solutions. So the long-term impact is a bizarre disconnect where the thinker is having a relationship crisis about their partner that their partner isn't involved with and doesn't know about. They're going to be exhausted from worrying and carrying this weight and not actually talking it through, and their partner is not really knowing what's going on. So this is all about uncertainty, intolerance in a very pure way. The thinker cannot accept I don't know as an answer, so they manufacture certainty through catastrophic storytelling, preferring the certainty of an imagined disaster to the discomfort of actually just not knowing. The defender's behavioral response is all about their internal attacks on themselves, and it shows up sometimes as procrastination or half-hearted efforts, but it all stems from their thinking. They don't consider, they will attack themselves, point out that they're not good enough, or perhaps even just see everyone else as better than them. And they have a very limited core belief that they are unworthy. Internally, they're fighting this battle against self-attacks because every action gets filtered through this lens of I'm not good enough, or you did something wrong, or nobody loves you. A typical story that I would see is someone who's got the defender archetype not planning a romantic date because they will convince themselves that the partner doesn't love them, that it's not going to be good enough, that they won't get it right, so why bother? And then they scramble to do a half-assed thing, which obviously annoys their partner who was promised a romantic dinner. And then the defender picks up on the response of the disappointment in their partner, which proves that they are not worthy and unlovable and something's wrong with them. The uncertainty that they can't tolerate isn't about their partner necessarily, it's more about their own worth. They can't tolerate the uncertainty of whether they deserve love. That critical voice undermines their competence and is self-sabotaging. And that's exhausting for someone to be in a relationship with someone who doesn't think they're worthy of being there. The fortress's behavioral response is withdrawal, withholding, shutting down. They might agree to things they don't want to do. They're not going to express hurt feelings. They're going to avoid difficult conversations. But all the time, resentment and unmet needs will grow. Their internal response treats emotional expression as stepping into chaos or a minefield. Sharing your needs or sharing your feelings is all uncertain. They don't know how somebody's going to respond, if they're going to be rejected. So they choose the predictability of silence over the unknown of being vulnerable. And obviously, the long-term impact is that their partner ends up in a relationship with a ghost, someone who is physically present but not emotionally there. It makes the partner feel lonely and disconnected, and it's a very challenging dynamic. This is one of the most hidden forms of uncertainty and intolerance, in my opinion. It's not the fear of intimacy itself, but the fear of uncertainty that intimacy requires, choosing the certain pain of isolation over emotional exposure. Okay, so all 5 patterns are doing the same impossible job, trying to remove uncertainty from romance. And the more you squeeze for certainty through checking, explaining, arguing, shutting down, the more anxious and disconnected you feel. You never get to prove anxiety wrong. So we can't make uncertainty go away. But what we can do is stop treating uncertainty like an emergency and reacting to it in the same way. We've got to increase our capacity to tolerate uncertainty. So the overall goal is to increase how much uncertainty you can tolerate in your relationship. And couples who do well to tolerate more uncertainty get better at swimming in it, so they can let a delayed reply to a text message stay a delay, a dinner just be quiet, and a request for an important emotional conversation just to happen. So before I give you the tool that starts the ball rolling on this, you should know that I've built this relationship anxiety quiz to help you identify your specific anxiety archetype. And when you sign up with your email, you'll get a free tool that's specific to your type or archetype. And the goal of all of the tools is to give you more options rather than your current go-to behaviors, which are all anxiety driven. So if you're ready to trade surveillance for trust, or control for connection, or guessing for clear bids for intimacy, take the quiz, find your pattern, start building a connection that tolerates anxiety and uncertainty. But just to get the ball rolling, here's one of the tools that I've been thinking about that helps my clients tolerate more uncertainty. By now, you are probably very sick of this visual. It just shows all of the different archetypes, which are just patterns of anxiety. And the idea is that it illustrates that no matter how your anxiety shows up in your relationship, what behaviors you show, sure, we can categorize them, but at the center of it all is uncertainty. This uncertainty in our behaviors have a big impact on our relationship. And that's important to hold on to for a second, because we're talking about habits and behavioral changes. What motivates change in things that are automatic is really recognizing times when it doesn't feel good or the impact it has on people we care about. But the behaviors and the impact all come from a reaction that we have to a trigger, and that trigger has an element often of uncertainty in it. So one of the first tools that I send you when you take the relationship anxiety quiz is a formula and a worksheet that breaks this diagram down specifically for you. So it's going to start by asking you what the trigger is, what element of the trigger involved uncertainty. And you might not be able to do this right away, but because I don't think we are thinking about how uncertainty affects us until now. If you're still watching this, you are ahead of the game. Then we're going to write down what our reaction was, our behaviors, and the behaviors could be what you did or what you really wanted to do. Then we've got to think about the impact. But then I want you to think about the choice. What could you have done differently? Now, this is very hard because, we're talking about automatic behaviors here. So the last sheet is some alternative suggestions. Try this instead. And it gives you 8 or so different alternatives for trying something different next time. When we want to change our behaviors, we just have to try new things. There's a million tools that could work for you, but really they all involve an element of experimentation, trying something new and seeing if it works. So this is just one big experiment for you to try something new and different. So go ahead, take the quiz. I'm working on a whole bunch of other tools that I will send you as soon as you take the quiz, and I'll roll them out each week.